Today on Context, what we don't know about suicide and what we can learn to help prevent it.
Good morning, Vietnam!
And then he was gone. In one terse, gut-wrenching headline, Robin Williams' suicide set a world off kilter and caused millions to grasp at the eternal question, why?
He's a legend. He's unbelievable.
Robin was a national treasure.
Tragic loss.
Though thousands of Canadians take their own lives each year, suicide remains chronically under-discussed and misunderstood. Time to change that. In the next few minutes, meet those who've studied suicide, some who've considered it, and a man rescued from the brink. First, insights from a Canadian icon.
Who better to help us understand a comedian battling addiction and mental illness than another comedian who's spent years speaking out on those subjects? Canada's Mary Walsh is standing by in London. But first, here's Sheldon with In 60.
Worldwide, suicide accounts for nearly 1 million deaths every year. 11 people kill themselves every day in Canada. It cuts across all demographics. It's the second leading cause of death among those 15 to 29. The rate of death by suicide among Aboriginal males is 10 times greater than other men. Of the provinces, Quebec has the highest suicide rate. Some have called suicide a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Experts agree that the right intervention at the right time can save lives. Learning effective coping strategies can help deal with the danger. Many feel suicide sometime in their lives, but there are options. There is hope. There is help.
The death of Robin Williams this past summer conjures the dichotomy of the sad clown. To help us understand that conflict is one of Canada's treasures, Mary Walsh, recipient of the Governor-General's Performing Arts Award for Lifetime Artistic Achievement, and a great comedian. She joins us from London, England. Mary, what aspect of Robin Williams' battle with mental health issues and his death has stood out for you?
What really struck me about Robin Williams' death and his depression and his addiction issues was he had, of course, because America has a private healthcare system, and he had endless access to health, to help, I guess. So the other thing that I would say would be, then we simply don't know enough about what's going on. There simply isn't enough money being spent in research. In our own country, we are number 27 in the world in terms of what we spend on mental health research. And it's a bit of I know that we're all struggling to take the stigma, to remove the stigma.
Well, given that very struggle, what can you tell us about how important the role of family and friends is when they fear someone is at risk of suicide?
It's so important, and yet so difficult, isn't it? I remember I got something, CAMH gave me something, and a doctor who was running CAMH, was the head of CAMH at the time, he received some sort of an award, and he spoke, and he said he'd had cancer that year, and he'd been in hospital, and his family visited him, and the only difficult time was when they were all laughing so loud in the ward that the nurse came and asked them to keep their voices down, and he'd gotten excellent care, and he'd gotten better from the cancer, and his family had supported and been with him, and his friends and loved ones, and he said he just wished that that would be the case for just one of his patients, that they would have to go in and ask the people, the family and friends, to keep it down because they were being so raucous. And so it's a very isolating disease, addiction the same way. You end up alone.
You know, Robin Williams spoke openly about his substance abuse, and he went to rehab. You have had that same public voice. You went public with your problems with alcohol. You sought help with Alcoholics Anonymous. What do we need to know about alcoholism and suicide?
I think that many people, of course, turn to alcohol and other drugs to self-medicate. And so sometimes when people get off alcohol or whatever drug they're using, then their problems become even more profound because they have actually been medicating themselves all this time. So there is a real connection between alcoholism and addiction, but we don't really know what it is. I keep saying the same thing over and over again. It's like we see all these things that run parallel with each other, but we don't know why, and we don't know. I mean, alcoholism and addiction have been recognized as health issues and as diseases since the 60s or early 70s, and yet we still think that it's a matter of will and that people are weak and why don't they just get over it? It seems it's very difficult for society to find compassion for the addicted.
Mary, it was Mark Breslin, the Yuck Yucks Comedy Club founder, and he quoted saying, "The highest cause of death for comedians under 50 is suicide, and for years, studies have searched for a link between creativity and mental illness." What are your thoughts on this?
I'm not sure, is it about isolation, I wonder? And that leads them to seems to, I can't say that that's the truth, but they seem to then find this strength in their own creativity. And of course, comedy is a way of dealing with trauma, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. It has always been that, and it is always how do I respond to this? I get a laugh, right? And of course, the whole sad clown thing, and this has been something we've sort of been aware of, haven't we, for hundreds of years, really.
Mary Walsh, award-winning actor and comedian, thank you very much for joining us from London.
Thank you, Lorna.
Well, there was a robust conversation on social media after the suicide of Robin Williams. His daughter, Zelda Williams, had a lot to say. Sheldon, you've got more on that.
Lorna, after her father's suicide, Zelda Williams tweeted, "Mental illness is often misunderstood and misrepresented, but that's starting to change. Let's end the stigma. You can't simply choose to make mental illness go away. It is not cowardly to suffer or seek help." Lastly, my dad openly fought depression his whole life, both in general and on his own. No matter what anyone says, it is a fight. Fight on.
Well, as we mentioned, suicide recognizes few boundaries. Orlando De Silva is a lawyer and is currently the president of the Ontario Bar Association. He has a powerful story of near suicide. Orlando, welcome to Context.
Thank you.
Very brave of you to come on with your story that happened in the fall of 2008. You had just lost your bid to have a seat in the federal parliament. Your marriage was falling apart, and you were discouraged. What happened?
It's a strange thing to run an election. I think I was buoyed by the team I had around me, but as soon as I lost, I felt that the campaign office was closed, all the signs came down, and I had to face the bleak reality, for me anyway, that I had lost my marriage through the course of the campaign and before. I was sinking lower and lower into a depression, something I'd recognized I'd done many times before because I suffer from a major depressive disorder and dysthymia. When you're depressed, you want nothing more than to isolate yourself from everybody. And the best way to do that, it seems to the irrational, depressed mind, is in the first instance to sleep, and in the second, more drastic and more irrational instance, to end your life.
You went further than wanting to sleep.
I did. By the third or fourth night of taking maybe 7 or 8 pills a night, where you're only supposed to take one, I started drinking bottles of wine. And by the fourth night, I had swallowed 180 of these sleeping pills. For some reason, I had a 6-month supply of this stuff. And I'd finished the bottle of medication. I'd finished the bottle of wine. I looked at the floor at 3 or 4 other bottles, and I stood up and I thought, you know, I'm in danger. I will probably die, but I don't care. You know, so it wasn't really that I was intending to kill myself, but I was reckless about it, and I didn't care about the consequence. So I stood up. I have no idea where I was intending to go, and I fell to the floor immediately. And lying in front of me was my BlackBerry. And I picked it up, and I knew I couldn't see any of the numbers or the screen, but I knew where to press the speed dial to reach my ex-wife, you know, that I was going through the divorce with. And I talked to her. I got her on the phone. I wasn't sure that I could. I knew I couldn't dial 911 because I didn't know where the 9 or the 1s were. So I pressed this number, and she answered. And I said, you know, I think I made a mistake. I don't think I should have done this, but I've taken too many pills. And because she knew me and knew my history with depression, she called 911.
You now, as a lead advocate for mental health in your profession, do things to monitor your vulnerability to depression. What are they?
Well, I know when I'm falling down the spiral. So I have, you know, a number system of 10 to 0. 0 would be me in the hospital. 10 is something I've never experienced. 8 is normal for me. So I know what I am like as an 8. When I fall down to a 6, it's different. You know, I drop some of my hobbies. I lose interest in some of the things I do. I isolate myself more. When I'm at a 5, I start to need help. I need to talk to somebody. But I'm still rational enough to know that I am depressed and I need help. If it falls down to a 3 or a 2, then I'm no longer rational. I think I don't deserve the love in my life. I don't deserve my family. I don't deserve the help of God. I don't deserve my career. I've been a fraud all my life, getting into school with marks that I didn't deserve, LSAT score I didn't deserve.
That spiral starts.
And I think that, you know, the best thing for everyone who loves me is to exit the world. I'm going to do them a favor.
Okay, so when you're monitoring and you're dropping, and you don't even think you're worth God's love, what do you do?
The best thing to do is to tell somebody else. One of the best things I've ever done is write a letter to myself when I was feeling good and grateful and thankful. And when I was feeling suicidal, I read that letter, and it reminded me that there were better days to come.
Orlando De Silva, you've been very helpful to us today on learning about suicide. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we return, 2 remarkable frontline stories of suicide recovery and prevention.
The only thing missing from today's conversation is you. To add your voice, call us at 1-800-215-4913. Email us at comments@contextwithlorna.com or reach us by Facebook or Twitter. We see, hear, read, and value all feedback.
Click contextwithlorna.com to access exclusive web resources. Do a topical search on a subject you need to know. There's blogs, articles, links, and previous episodes. Life beyond the headlines. That's contextwithlorna.com. Roz Crichton has lost count of the number of suicide deaths that have been dealt with at the Coping Center. She's going to help us understand some of the spiritual realities involved. But first, here's Sheldon with some fast facts.
Lorna, reducing the risk of suicide needs to start with being willing to have a conversation. Talking calmly and with a sincere concern can help ease into the topic. Suicide is often a silent scream for help. So if someone you know is displaying the signs of depression, be open to talking to them about it. People need to know that someone cares. Suicide is not about a desire to die, but rather a desire to put an end to the pain. A majority of those who take their own life first seek medical help, but some may not always. So remember this, any threat of suicide, even what seems like a harmless joke, should be taken seriously.
Well, Ross Crichton is the founder and the director of the Coping Center, which facilitates coping bereavement support groups. Roz, thank you so much for joining us.
Privileged to be here.
Suicide, you know, of course, draws out the emergency responders. But after the ambulance and fire and all that have gone, the Coping Center comes in. Your police refer people grieving, the families left behind, to your service and others like yours. Tell us what those left behind are going through.
And each story is so unique, Lorna, because of all the circumstances that surrounded that suicide. So when we see people, and it can be different time frames that we're seeing them, it can be right after the suicide, or it can be months or even years afterwards. But many of them early on, the word shattered is a word that I often use. They are shattered, they're devastated, they're shocked, they're in disbelief. It's hard to even believe that this has happened. You know, they're traumatized. And that's an important word that we need to use with suicide. The trauma is very deep and very wide.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it just takes people a long time before they can go towards it, you know, because it's so painful and so devastating. It's a difficult thing to move towards. And one of the good things that we can do as we companion people is to allow people to go at their own pace, to walk with them. Part of really understanding how to come alongside of people that are in trauma is to really exercise what we call first aid. And God is amazing at first aid. He puts his arms around people. He's quiet and he's silent and he's still. And he cries with them. But he also wants to hear, when you're ready, your thoughts. Because often, Lorna, there's a lot of anger towards God, or, you know, misunderstanding, disillusionment, disappointment.
People tried so hard to protect their loved one.
Exactly. You know, there's so much involved in that. So while we have to emotionally process, we also have to spiritually process.
You also believe that in the DNA, that there is, in our DNA, there's an innate desire to live.
Absolutely.
What is that? You think that's God-wired? Explain that.
Absolutely. Sheldon said something really very interesting. He said, people who die from suicide, it's not that they want to die, they're struggling to live. They're struggling with the pain. Why don't they really want to die? Inside our spirit, because we have the DNA of God. And that gives that little glimmer of, you know what? We want to live, because life is a gift from God.
Once it's recognized, someone may have suicidal thoughts. Yes. How then, what do we say and do? How do we make that bridge to hope?
Right. Having a conversation and asking a person if they are suicidal, first of all, is really important. We need to be able to say that. We need to look for the signs.
Be the first person to put it on the table. Just say to you.
Are you having suicidal thoughts? It's okay to say that to somebody, and we need to know about this conversation. You then sort of lead them a little bit as to how have you been thinking about that? Okay. What have your thoughts been? You know, find out now how to keep them, well, first of all, a reason for them to live. Now comes the conversation. Is there anyone that will be devastated if you die? See, Orlando thought people would be better off. So sometimes this conversation needs to be, you know, a long conversation, a conversation of what parts of your life, where is purpose, who do you love, all of those kinds of conversations need to go on. There will be something that person will give you, a little hook. You're listening for it. Once you hear it, you've got it. You have a reason to live. Now, how can we keep you safe? I will go with you, and I will you give me those pills? Will you give me those pills?
Yeah.
Whatever they're talking about, or, whatever. I wouldn't say, would you call me? Because they might not. They might not. I would make arrangements to keep them safe for at least the next 24 hours for you to get them to some professional help. You've got to have someone who understands that you have to keep that person safe. That's your job there. You're not the professional that can do it from there, but you are the person that can keep them safe for those hours until you get them to someone who can really help them.
Okay. Yeah. Roz Crichton, Director of the Coping Center. We can get our viewers connected with you in the Coping Center and other great agencies that we've listed on our website. Roz, thank you so much for being with us. When we come back, musician Lacey Sturm's journey to the brink of suicide and what saved her life.
Why just watch Context when you can be part of it? To join our live studio audience in Toronto's CBC Broadcasting Centre, give us a call at 416-599-9777, extension 58, or email us at tickets@contextwithlorna.com.
Click contextwithlorna.com to access exclusive web resources. Do a topical search on a subject you need to know. There's blogs, articles, links, and previous episodes. Life beyond the headlines. That's contextwithlorna.com.
The only thing missing from today's conversation is you. To add your voice, call us at 1-800-215-4913. Email us at comments@contextwithlorna.com or reach us by Facebook or Twitter. We see, hear, read, and value all feedback.
This segment is brought to you by Bruce Etherington and Associates, Family Harmony and Philanthropy, helping you help others.
Lacey Sturm is a Grammy-nominated recording artist. She's a former member of the rock band Flyleaf and is now a sought-after speaker and performer. And I caught up with her recently when she was on tour in Toronto. You have an incredible story. You're all planned. You're all determined. You're going to end your life. What happened?
I hated Christians. I hated the church, and ended up coming home from school to go about my plan to commit suicide. And my grandmother was home. She wasn't supposed to be home. She was supposed to be at the hospital with my grandfather, and she happened to be there, and she looked at me and knew something was wrong and said, "You're going to go to church. It's Wednesday. Something's wrong with you. You need help. You're going to go to church." And of course, I was upset about that. I hate Christians. I hate church. I don't want to go. Then we got into an argument, and finally, at the end of
she yelled at you for an hour.
At least. Yes, and I think that was some grace of God for her to do that. She was persistent, she's passionate, and she knew that she was right. So just to get her to stop yelling at me, I went to church and sat in the back of the church, hated everybody. And there was a man preaching that I was judging because he was a man, first of all, and then because he was older, and I thought he was insensitive because that's how I judged Southern men in America. And he began to cry. And when he was crying, I was shocked by that. And everybody was quiet. And he said, "There's a suicidal spirit in the room." And I, stopped breathing for a second. And he said, "Please come up here and let us pray for you. God has a plan for your life, and he doesn't want you to die tonight." And they dismissed the service. And I went to the back of the room, and a man stopped me by the arm, touched my arm and stopped me and looked at me. And he looked at me with a love like I'd never seen in a strange man's eyes. Like he was a stranger, and I just was like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And he said, "The Lord wants me to speak to you, and he wants you to know that even though you've never known an earthly father, God will be a better father to you than any earthly father could ever be." And then he said, "God has seen you when you cry yourself to sleep at night." And when he said that, it was shocking because that was the loneliest part of my day. And I felt like no one saw me. And that was so shocking because I had done it ever since I was 10. I couldn't sleep unless I cried or I was on some substance that was awful. And I was so shocked. And then he asked if he could pray for me. And I was finally, okay, you can pray.
You've had a long journey since then. And you've got something written on your arm that talks about that journey. Tell us about that.
It says daughter and laughter at the same time. And it's about me figuring out who I am and what my identity rests in, the fact that I am a daughter of God. If I know that I'm a daughter of God and that He's good and loving, then I can walk through life with a hope in Him and a trust in Him that I don't have to fear the future. There is the truth that we are all created by a God who has a purpose for our life and a plan for our life. And it's not an accident. There's a really good, loving God who made an artwork piece out of who you are when He created you in your mom's belly. And when He did that, He put together your personality. He knows what's going to make you laugh, what's going to make you cry. He knows the numbers of hairs on your head. He knows your name. He loves you. And the thing about it is that if we can overcome the dark places, when we come to the other side, we'll have a story that gives hope to someone else going through those dark places.
The Bible has a great deal to say about life and death, and though 7 people in Scripture take their own lives, it seems to have little to say about suicide. Or does it? The Bible speaks of hope, of love, of caring for our neighbors, and of a God whose unconditional love we can never be separated from. God wanted people to know that your life is a gift that has purpose. Spiritual education and care is as useful as medication, and that's a strong place to start. Yet we are fast learning that the needs of the suicidal go beyond the soothing Scripture passages, and all of us need a better radar for those in deep distress. More vigilance, more education. But do contact us if you need the resources we've talked about today, resources which bridge people for safety and hope, resources which remind people that they are loved by God. And for more on all that, you can get into it through our Contact Us button and at contactwithlorna.com. We do return all our mail, all our phone calls, so reach out. For all of us, I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching. Join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines.
In August, some of our students obviously suffer from chronic depression, and of course in that situation a lot have attempted suicide or at least thought or had suicidal thoughts. And what we find that obviously they've come to us after they've somewhat kind of had to deal with that situation, and coming to the college and finding purpose, getting to be retrained in a different field, and either in our construction program or our culinary program, and just finding purpose and having the ability to be trained in something else, and going out there and finding employment. And it helps in the recovery process, and it helps them find purpose in life.
I found this episode just a really powerful way to approach the need for us to obviously not have a stigma against it, and I know that's talked about a lot.
It's not too late to send us your comments, voicemail, email, Facebook, or Twitter. The conversation continues.